Hello everyone and welcome back to the Critter Corner. Today I'm doing a very requested video, a general Isopod care guide. So I'm going to be covering Porcilio, Armadillium, and Cubaris in this video. Those are the main species I keep. So this is going to be a general care guide for all of them, and I'll talk about different species and all of that. But yeah, so let's get started with the enclosures. So when I buy my Isopod colonies, it's typically in 6 count or 10 counts, and I start them all in these containers. I'm going to link these containers in the description. They're awesome. I don't remember the brand name off the top of my head. It's like letters in a different language here, and I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'll link them in the description. So this one is 3 inches by 5 inches. These are the enclosure sizes I would recommend starting off at 6 or 10 counts. Because you want your isopods interacting, you want them interacting, eating, breeding. You are focusing on getting them as close together so they will breed and make babies. Once you see around 50 isopods in this, you can upgrade them to the next size. Here's them on top of each other for a size comparison. This one is 4.5 inches by 8 inches. So this is the next size. Once you see 100 isopods in there, I would recommend, now this is a big jump. I'll show you them on top of each other. This is a much bigger jump. I recommend this, 12 inches by 8 inches. And these are all the same brand. So those are your breeding containers. As far as bioactives go, do not put a 10 count in an enclosure. Unless it's a really small enclosure. Don't do it. They won't breed. You will never see them again. I would recommend for like a 40-gallon, a leopard gecko, I would recommend probably like 50 isopods, putting them all in there. For a crested gecko, maybe 25. And for an 120-gallon, like a ball python, bearded dragon, you're going to want 100 isopods before you put them in there. Because if you put 10 isopods in a 120-gallon, most likely they're not going to breed. And I'll get more into bioactives later, but that's just the general gist of everything. So yeah. That for enclosure size, that's what I would recommend. Now let's talk about what to put in the enclosure. I'm going to get out my beautiful chocolate zebras to show you guys. So these are my chocolate zebras. This is probably my favorite colony. There's a ton of little babies. As you can see, there's also a ton of springtails. But look at those little babies. So in here, I have a piece of cork. The substrate is peat moss. And then I have sphagnum moss. And then the charcoal was for the springtails. And then some leaf litter that they are just chomping away at. So this is pretty much all you need in an isopod enclosure. As you can see, there's fungus gnats. You're going to get fungus gnats with isopods. It's kind of like unavoidable, but I do have a video about fungus gnats if you want to watch that one. But yeah, here's my thriving colony. I just love them. And these guys won't get upgraded for a while. I want to wait till these babies are full-grown adults, thriving, making more babies. But that's pretty much all you need to set up the isopods. As far as like how deep the substrate is, this is what it looks like. But yeah, here is their container. So let's make a little shopping list if you want to start an isopod colony. First, you need an enclosure. Second, you need substrate, whether it's Repti bark, cocoa core, or not Repti bark, Repti soil, cocoa core, or peat moss. Next, you need sphagnum moss. You can also use pillow moss, but sphagnum moss is easier. And you need leaf litter, and then you need a piece of cork. And that's pretty much all you need to get your isopods set up. Something that I forgot to mention is that these enclosures are stackable. All the ventilation holes are on the side, so you can stack them up and they can fit beautifully in small spaces if you need them to. So now let's talk about different species of isopods. Porcilios are probably the most common you're going to see. Porcilio I'm so sorry, I cannot pronounce these scientific names. Porcilio prunosus is powdered blue, powdered orange. Porcilio scaber, giant orange, giant canyons. Giant canyons are my favorite isopods ever. So, also Dalmatians are Porcilio scaber. I do have some Dalmatians right here. I'm going to show you these guys, what they look like, maybe like some of their behavior and stuff too. So, let's look over. See my Porcilio scaber. These are Dalmatians. And they left me a molt. I'll talk about molting later. But these guys are fast. I'm going to see if I can get them to move. But these guys are a lot faster than some other isopods. So Porcilios are awesome. I love Porcilios. They breed quickly, and they're also great for drier environments, but they also work in humid environments, which is awesome. So if you have a leopard gecko, a bearded dragon, something drier, I would pretty much only recommend Porcilio. Armadillium and Cubaris are gonna need more humidity. As far as humidity goes, I don't know the percentages because I kind of just like vibe, kind of just go with the flow. So I'm not gonna be providing those in this care guide, but Porcilios are much more hardy to dryness than other species. I mist all of my isopods once a week, and that's it. So humidity is really easy to maintain, especially in these containers. When I stack them, I put my Porcilios near the top because they're going to have more air, just because like nothing's stacked on top of them. And then I put my more humid species on the bottom. So yeah. Next, let's talk about Armadillium. Now, Armadillium are probably the prettiest isopods. I'm going to get out all my Armadilliums and give you a little tour. Armadillium vulgare, I think is the Armadillium coolgi, Armadillium granulatum, and Armadillium maculatum. I didn't say any of those names, but those are probably the most common species you're going to see. Vulgare, let me get these out. And then these are Cubaris. Okay. So, my favorite Armadillium are the zebras. I have 3 different colonies of zebras. I have yellow zebras, I have chaga zebras, and I have regular zebras. Here are some of my yellow zebras. They're absolutely gorgeous. Punta Canas are also in this category. Puddings. Granulated. Zebras. And the famous clowns. Armadilliums, honestly, are my favorite isopods to keep because they are so gorgeous. Pretty much any kind you get is going to be absolutely beautiful. And their care is not too difficult. I feel like they are pretty hardy. The only Armadillium I've had issues with, honestly, are magic potions. And I did a video ranking my isopod colonies, like, when I first started doing YouTube, and they were #1. But then my colony crashed, and I've had a really hard time getting it started again. But I just love Armadilliums. They're so gorgeous. Their care, again, they're pretty hardy, but they breed very, very slowly in my experience. They are really slow breeders. My clowns have been breeding pretty quickly, but my chocolate zebras, I've had them since July. I just started seeing babies a month ago in January. So it's been a long time. And I just love them. These, oh, I forgot to say, Porcilios. The first isopod species I talked about, they cannot congregate, so they can't curl up into a ball. Armadilliums can, and Cubaris can. So the next 2 species I'm talking about, Armadillium right now, they can curl up into a ball. They can congregate, so can Cubaris. But Porcilios cannot, which is interesting, but really cool. I think Porcilios, their body structure, it's much different than Armadilliums and Cubaris, and they're just so pretty. I feel like they're more like true isopod, but I don't know. I just love Porcilios. But yeah, Armadilliums, beautiful. They require a little bit more humidity than like Porcilios, but not a ton. Like, it's very maintainable, mist once a week, and they just take a while to breed. So yeah. Finally, let's talk about Cubaris. Everyone's favorite species, probably everyone always talks about, when they're talking about isopods, they mean Cubaris. Cubaris are really cool. And honestly, I like Armadilliums more than them. I like Porcilios more than them, just because Cubaris can be difficult. But if we're talking about isopods, rubber duckies are Cubaris. And everyone always asks me about rubber duckies. I do have rubber duckies. I'll show them. Pandas, they're Cubaris. Glaciers, I think papayas also, yeah, papayas are Cubaris. So there's a bunch of cool different isopods in here, but let's talk about them. So Cubaris colonies are prone to crashing. Just they are. Everything I've seen, they crash pretty easily. They require a lot of humidity, but the biggest thing that I feel like not a lot of people talk about is they are so incredibly shy. So shy. My red pandas and my rubber duckies are probably some of my favorite isopods. I never see them. And when I do see them, they curl up in a ball. They congregate. So the best thing to do with Cubaris is set them up, mist them, and then leave them alone. Only open their like tub to mist them because they are so shy and they will stress out. Like, I'll talk about this later when I talk about like isopods, like behavior in general, but crustaceans are incredibly sensitive and they can die from stress. So Cubaris are the ones that I would be the most careful of, and unfortunately they are the most expensive. So you could invest $100 in a 10 count rubber ducky colony and they could completely die off in a week. You never know. So that's what the most frustrating thing about isopod keeping is. You can do everything right and your colony can still crash, and when you have expensive isopods, it's really frustrating. So Cubaris, the biggest thing, they're shy. I have had a lot of success with my glaciers. I've honestly had a lot of success with my rubber duckies right now too. The biggest thing, and this is the most true for Cubaris, Porcilios, no matter where you get them from, they're probably going to be pretty healthy because they're so hardy. Armadilliums are kind of the same thing. Cubaris you have to get from a good isopod company, because the difference between healthy rubber duckies and not healthy rubber duckies, you can tell, because the colonies will crash. That's my experience. That's what I've seen. I would recommend Pangea. Pangea is awesome for isopods. I've only had good experiences with Pangea. As far as like the big websites go, Doobie Roaches and Josh's Frogs, I have not had great experience ordering isopods from. Pangea is honestly the best place for isopods, the best big company. If you want a small business, Isoflora, oh my gosh. They have so many different options, and the sellers are so sweet. They're so good at communication, and their isopods are really affordable. So if you can find the species you want on Isoflora, I would recommend ordering from them. I'll link everyone in the description. Isoflora is incredible. I love them. I would recommend buying isopods from them any day. And the only issue is they might be sold out because they're pretty popular, I've seen. But I would recommend Pangea if you can't get them from Isoflora. If Isoflora has ones you want, get them from them. But yeah, I just feel like picking the right place to order from is a huge deal. It really is. So those are the two biggest places I would recommend. I got my red pandas from Amazon and they all came really healthy. I'll link that seller if I can find them. I probably can. But my red pandas were really healthy and I got them from Amazon. So it just depends on the seller, but Cubaris I feel like are the most sensitive for shipping and everything like that. So yeah, biggest thing, leave them alone. Don't let them dry out, and find a good seller for Cubaris. That's what I would recommend. So now to show off some of my Cubaris, these are baby glaciers. So these are my glaciers. Look at those little babies. They're so beautiful. I'm obsessed with them. Like I said, they're really shy, but there's one of my red pandas. There's another one. They're so cool. Here's the star of the show, the rubber duckies. Now, I saw babies on this corkboard the other day. I'm going to see if I can find them. There's a baby right there. Oh my gosh, it's really hard to see. I'll circle it if I can. There's another rubber ducky. So let's talk a little bit more about isopods in general, because I love isopods. They're the best. So isopods are crustaceans. They're not bugs. So like a lot of other crustaceans, they have some form of a modified gill. So that humidity, they actually breathe it in. So it's really important for them. They also molt. So they are going to shed their exoskeleton. And isopods are a lot more hardy than people think. They can take a little bit, like, they can take falls. They can take more than like a bug would, because their exoskeleton is hard and protective. But they will need to molt that exoskeleton. And isopods molt half of their body at a time. So they still have mobility. So they'll molt, I don't know which one they do first, but they'll molt one half and then they'll molt the other half. And sometimes they'll leave you some molts. I don't know if they eat their molts. I think they probably do. I actually don't know that. I need to look it up when I'm editing, and I'll put the answer right here. But my springtails might eat them too. So yeah, they molt, which is really cool. And isopods are just awesome. They are known as a cleanup crew in bioactive enclosures, which I'll talk more about that right now. So isopods will eat poop, they'll eat leaf litter, they'll eat dying plants, rotting plants, they'll eat pretty much anything in your enclosure that you want cleaned up. So they are a pretty good cleanup crew. And once you have an established colony and really get that ecosystem ramped up, they will do wonders in your enclosures. They are really good paired with springtails. I actually don't know a ton about springtails. I have them in all my enclosures and I just let them do their thing. Like scientifically, I don't know a lot about them, which I probably should know more. But springtails will help eat the mold, and they are great in isopod enclosures too. They'll help clean all that stuff up. Speaking of bioactive enclosures, if you are still watching this video, this is the most important thing to keeping isopods. Please listen to this part. Please, I'm begging you, please. Do not try your best, try your absolute hardest to not replace your isopod substrate. Now, I know that's so hard for some people, but isopods create their own ecosystems. Their enclosures are not always going to smell the best. They're not always going to look the prettiest. They're not always going to like look the cleanest. They're going to have mold. They're going to have poop. They're going to have dirt. They're not going to look the prettiest. They're going to have rotting food. Isopods and springtails will take care of it. They made that ecosystem. If you, the second there's mold in their enclosure, you take them all out and replace their substrate. First of all, there's definitely babies in the substrate you missed. Definitely. Second of all, that was their ecosystem. That was their thing. That's what they were doing. Like, they do their thing. You really don't need to replace a substrate. And that's honestly the key to a thriving colony, I feel like, is please do not replace their substrate. I know you really want to. I know you might see mold and be like, oh my God. No. If you see mold, add more springtails, but also maybe mist less. Like, there's a lot of things you can adjust. That's why, like, the trial and error part, there's a lot of things you can adjust to, like, once you kind of learn as you, like, grow as you learn. But please do not replace their substrate over and over. You might need to. If there's, like, a really big, like, bacterial bloom and it's really bothering you, you might need to replace their substrate. But try other things before you replace the substrate. I need to look more into this. I'm going to look more into it when I'm editing, and I'll put some information right here if I find it. I've heard, and if you put yeast in your enclosures, it makes the springtails, like, breed like crazy and will get rid of mold. I tried this. I think I'm still seeing the effects of it. It's been, like, a couple days, and I think it's, like, slowly happening. But that is a tip you might be able to look up and figure out too. But yeah, don't replace the substrate. That's my biggest tip, honestly. You may be thinking, did she forget to talk about food? I absolutely did, but now I'm going to talk about it. So this is what I feed my isopods and springtails. I dust their colonies with this twice a week. This is from Amazon, and I'll link it in the description. I think, I always get confused if it's Repashy or Pingy. I think it's Repashy. They have morning wood. I've heard that's good. I haven't tried it. I'll link that in the description too. But this is the isopod and springtail food I use. And then I feed them veggies once a week. Whether it's carrots, bell peppers. Usually it's carrots or bell peppers, honestly, because that's what I have for my guinea pigs. But I feed them veggies once a week and then this twice a week. So food is really easy. Leaf litter, you always want to make sure you have in there. They munch down on that leaf litter. Same with moss. So they will eat that stuff too. They'll also eat the cork. They'll eat everything. So just make sure you're checking up on them, seeing what's going on, but they're really easy to feed. Finally, I want to talk about some things you might come across. I already talked about mold, but these, I already forget what they're called. I'm going to put the name of them right here. But there's these little clear worms that you may find in your enclosures. This goes for replacing the substrate and everything too. Those actually are, they're like non-harmful parasites, I think. I'm going to put the name of it here. But I've read a bunch about this. Those are in almost all my enclosures. Not my enclosures, but in my isopod enclosures. And they are, what do they call them? Like beneficial parasites, beneficial bacteria or something. And there's these little clear worms. You'll see them. You'll probably see them. But I have read if it gets out of hand, replace the substrate. But if you're just seeing like not a ton, and I'm talking about like if you see like them taking over your whole enclosure, you might want to replace the substrate. But like if you're seeing like a little like on the cork and like stuff, they can be beneficial and they can help as a cleanup crew. they can clean up after your isopods. The only time I've seen them being harmful is they kind of take over your colony, and then like there's too many of them, they're competing for resources with the isopods. But yeah, those little clear worms, I feel like they're called like nemotes. That's nematodes. That's definitely not what they're called. But yeah, those little clear worms, I just want to mention those because that is a thing you'll come across, but they're mostly harmless. Okay, I think I talked about everything. I really tried to cover everything in this care guide. If you have questions though, comment them down below and I would love to answer them. Isopods are my passion forever. I love them. So if you want more isopod videos, comment which ones you want, what you want me to talk about. I love isopods. I would love to do it. But yeah, I hope I covered everything you wanted me to in this video. And if I didn't, ask in the comments, I'll answer them. So yeah, thanks so much for watching today's video on the Critter Coordinator, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!